Okay, it's 9 p.m. on March the 19th. I've got itchy feet, and so I'm going to hit the road. I debated with myself as to whether to take the Honda XR or take the Yamaha NMAX, but I decided to go with the Hyundai Accent. I'm going to take my car. I have my tent packed up in the back, some of the camping gear. I have an inflatable mattress too. So, let's hit the road. Good morning from Darwin. I jumped in the car at 10:30 last night. Thought I would make it down here for maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, but I just took it slow. Stopped off in McDonald's of all places. It was the only place that was open. What are all the different ways that we would justify eating such horrible food? Anyway, I needed to hit the road. It's a form of tonic for me. My head has become like a trash can. Somebody was describing that yesterday, how we feed our mind with all this different stuff like social media, although I'm not nearly as bad on the social media as most people. I'd say I'm probably in the lower 10 to 15% of worst offense social media users. I can see when I tap on my Facebook that the Reels section comes into play pretty quickly, and then I get sucked into that like a vortex, man. Within seconds, I'm locked in, and then click your fingers and 45 minutes is gone. Nah, I don't do it for 45 minutes. I can go into a trance for about 15 minutes, and then suddenly I'll shake my head as if I'm a duck coming out of a pond. What was that about? And the fact of the matter is that there's a huge percentage of people who aren't fussed or don't seem to notice the effect that those reels are having on them, on the mind. See that the TikTok reels. If you spend an hour, and some people spend more than that, multiple hours. I think in the Philippines they're the worst offenders. So combine that social media with maybe some of the newspapers that I possibly would be better off avoiding, even though I just read The Spectator and The Economist. It will probably be a good idea just to stop reading newspapers, just to hop off the juggernaut altogether. And then Netflix, or downloading movies that have barely been released. If I log on to my Netflix and I see something that's recently added, I know I'm going to binge. If it's a good show, I'm down for at least a couple of hours. So this person was describing it like the content that we absorb. It's almost the same as if we're eating Jollibee, McDonald's and Burger King. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to force this horrible stuff into myself. Well, we don't put on a heap of weight when we consume all this horrible content. We become toxic in a different kind of way. So it builds up for me, and I think eventually it's like breaking point. I need to go. I need to jump on a bike, whether it's a motorcycle or a bicycle, or I need to jump in a car, or I need to jump on a plane. If there was a train station nearby, I'd be on the train a lot more. So they're my options: bike, motorbike, bus, or plane. My destination, where I'm at the moment, there's 5 islands all around me, and there are 8 or 9 destinations worthy of a trip. 3 or 4 of them have quite decent fellowships. So I'm in Down, which is 25 minutes outside of I just got a message there with confirmation there is a meeting at 10 a.m. so I'm delighted. Yeah, I'm at, look at, check this out. I am armed with a blow-up mattress, a decent tent that you can put together yourself in a minute or two. It's not got all these stupid pegs that you have to attach or hammer into the ground. It's got these little clips, so it's very easy to put together. And then I have this thing, it's a power station, and I can plug stuff into that, so that will power up my laptop as well. It would also power up my my pot, so I could boil up some water if I wanted to. And then I have this chair that I'm sitting on. I'm sitting on a nice camping chair, and that's all you need really. Like, right on the beach, a blow-up mattress, a tent, a camping chair. There's a meeting on an hour and a half. My car's in good nick. Petrol's expensive, but sure, I don't use the car when I'm up in Bocklet. I'm a very lucky person, you know, so, as are all of us. Sometimes when you hear people go on about their depression, or they have some kind of disorder, the doctor's giving me tablets, I've got the... I'm not saying they don't have it, but I don't think there's nearly as many people who will stop and think, hold on, why is the doctor prescribing me tablets again? Doctor, do I have cancer or tuberculosis or one of these horrible diseases? No? No, I don't. So what are you saying? I have ADHD and you want to give me amphetamines? Fucking hell. Where do they pull you out of? When people become quite protective of their drug use in recovery, whatever drugs they're on. I need it because I'm depressed and I'd possibly go mad. I'd go on a murder spree if I didn't have these tablets. Well, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't murder somebody, but you might feel a little bit, what's the word? There's a nice big for you. You were talking about the gap fillers or the pause. You know, sometimes, like, I try and consciously stop. I'm definitely better than I was a lot before. It's mostly because of our participation in those online meetings. You start sharing more often, and you become conscious of each of the parts in your speech where you would have been inserting a hefty yeah, now you can almost as if you're vividly watching yourself. So you stop and you breathe, you pause, you say the the or the, you know, you say that to yourself in your head, and then you continue with whatever it is that you're talking about. I guess also it's to do with courage. Like, if you're not afraid of what you're talking about, you know, you're talking about something, but you're confident enough that whatever it is that you're talking about is making some kind of sense. If we are more deliberate with the content, the stuff that we read, the stuff that we watch, etc., etc., then that should also have a calming effect on the mind. There won't be as many because we are learned. We have been reading or listening to enough people who have been speaking loquaciously. Beautiful day to be alive, a beautiful day to be clean. Joe Rogan says 400 trillion to 1 are the chances. What are the chances that you're alive? 400 trillion to 1. And you know Joe Rogan has a heap of friends. A lot of them are scientists, so I take his word for it. There's a guy not scuba diving, snorkeling. Now, of all the things that I remembered to put in my car, I forgot to put my snorkel there. I'm going to go for a nice little swim now, and then I'll go for my meeting. So this is Valencia. Valencia is located further up into the mountains behind Dumaguete, which is the city down in the arsehole of Necros Occidental. It is about 30 minutes away from Down, 30 minutes up above Dumaguete, and yeah, there's a lot of foreigners out here. So I'll take a little stroll around, I guess it's Valencia Town Square. You can see all the foreigners over there settling for their mid-afternoon coffee. I'd say you wouldn't need to be too much of a brave man now to open up a Zimmer frame business. You'd be doing all right. Here's an idea. If the English teach never goes belly up, you know, if suddenly 2 billion people around the world think to themselves, fuck it, I'm sick of learning English. I think I want to learn something completely different. That little bird has the right idea. Run around in circles with no apparent idea where it is you're going. Just run around in circles. Running in circles, chasing tails, pulling this puzzle apart. It's midday. No, it's not. It's lunch. We're over the hump. 2 p.m. is around the time that you can check into hotels, and so I have booked a kind of a campsite, caravan campsite kind of thing, even further up into the mountains. So that might be nice. I wanted to talk about the participation of us addicts in online recovery platforms. In particular, the participation in the IOMMNA virtual meeting. It's a 24-hour meeting. It's been on since the 20th of March 2020, and it is a huge part not only of my life but countless others. We're all in agreement that it has what's one person who says, catapulted us to a fourth dimension. We tend to use over emphatic terms when it comes to NA and recovery. Catapulted into a fourth dimension. Oh Jesus, would you calm down? I remember I was residentially challenged in Dublin around the time it came on, and I share this story quite often, so I'll share it again. I would wear my sleeping bag like a cape because I realised shame isn't going to do much for you when you're in that situation. You're too busy trying to, oh look at now, it's raining, I'm going to go up there into the gazebo. You're too busy trying to keep body and soul together in the most haphazard fashion possible by drinking copious amounts of alcohol and taking drugs. That's how you fool yourself into believing that you are keeping your body and soul together. Anyway, I remember I was sitting at the James Joyce statue opposite the GPO, and I had a pack of cider, and I had just begged either for loose change on the street or somebody might have wired me a tenner by Revolut. It was not easy for me to get my hands on the money I would need just to buy 6 cans of cider. And so these cans of cider were particularly delicious. And I was spared the usual feelings of dread at that moment, sitting at the James Joyce statue, and I was reminiscing, looking up the tricolour. I hadn't lived in Ireland for so long. I had a sense of optimism, I guess. Everything was going to be okay. I was just going through a hump, as was the rest of the world. The whole world had closed down. When along comes the guards, the Gardaí, and they would say, "Hello there, sir, what are you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm just sitting here at the James Joyce statue, lost in contemplation. There's a pandemic, have you heard?" And they asked me, "Where are you going? What are you doing? What's your fucking, how big is your dick, more or less?" "Garda, I'll tell you now how big my dick is. I'm homeless. I'm residentially challenged. I'm wearing a sleeping bag. I'm drinking cider for breakfast. So yeah, I'm probably not in a fit state to be answering your questions." So they pick up the cans of cider and they pour it out, and they pour it down the drain as if it was nothing to them. You know, not only are you, like, you may as well repossess a man's house, rape his wife, set fire to everything he's ever loved, as to take his cans of cider off him while he's sitting at the James Joyce statue staring over at the GPO, lost in contemplation. What type of a man are you? A direct descendant of Genghis Khan, no doubt. So down goes the cider, and I'm looking at these guards baffled. Why would you do that? See, you wouldn't see them go down and try that with one of the other addicts down on the boardwalk, because the other addicts would react. They wouldn't. They grew up in a completely different situation, so it wouldn't be much for them to whip out a knife and give them a Joker smile from ear to ear. That's why the guards don't do it. They don't go down and empty their pockets, because they'd be afraid they'd be knifed. Kind of addicts that are homeless with me in Dublin at the time were the kind of addicts who grew up in serious traumatic scenarios, man. Yours truly had nothing on them. So anyway, it was one particular day around the time that the meeting started that I went over to the free doctor across the road from the forecourts. And I was queuing up for the free doctor, or was I just walking by? I can't remember. And I looked up and I seen the poster and it said, "Have you got addiction problems? Are you looking for an NA or AA meeting but you can't find it because of these poxy COVID restrictions? Try meeting on Zoom." And then it posted the Zoom information, and I remember, for feck's sake, of course that's what's happening. All the alcoholics and drug addicts who didn't relapse have obviously figured out that there's a better way to meet, and they're doing it on the fucking internet. It's so obvious, isn't it? Like if I had searched online instead of asking the guards after they had emptied all my cider down the drain, I had almost, through tears in my eyes, said, "Guards, where the fuck are the NA meetings? Where are the AA meetings? I want to get sober. The rooms are closed." They said, "What rooms?" I said, "The rooms." The rooms. It's a term we use affectionately for the locations we attend when we're trying to get our recovery. Anyway, I went on this fucking Zoom thing. I remember sending an email, and I had a broken phone. It was busted. Fucking, "Dear such and such, I'm broken. I'm absolutely fucked. I'm hanging outside. I'm down outside the Free Doctors Hospital, you know, I can't figure out what I'm doing. You know, help me. Because I had enough recovery in me to know all I needed was a meeting. And somebody got back onto me fairly promptly and said, the meetings they're over in Fairview. We're meeting every day in Fairview at 5 p.m. Coincidentally, it was right across from where I used to live way back when I was acting the arsehole with Sean and Killian in Fairview Park. So a gang of alcoholics meet underneath the trees in Fairview Park every day at 5 p.m. And so I began to attend those meetings, and everything fell into place after that. The IOMMNA platform I would have come across almost around the same time. Because once I realized everything had moved online, I was able to trick around on Google, and it wasn't long before I found this. 24 hours. It's on for 24 hours. It never stops. And there's 150 people from all around the world, which reminded me of my first meetings in Saigon. International meetings, people from Canada, people from Australia, people from all walks, meeting in their flip-flops down the back end of a coffee shop in Saigon. So that meeting became instrumental, and I got my recovery, maybe a few little blips here and there, but for the most part, the latter half of the pandemic saw me wander around Europe, hopping on and off of €10 flights, because I realized the only requirement to be able to take a flight at the time was that you signed a contract. Not even a contract. You had to sign something when you arrived back home to say you were going to quarantine for 2 weeks. And so I would just stick in the form 123 Fake Street. Stick it up your bum. What's your phone number? 086-123-45678. I don't have a phone number. I don't have a home. So if you need me to fill out this form, I'll fill it out, but you're never going to track me down anyway. People who hadn't experienced life the way I had would have been afraid, because down in the small print of the form it said, this is a criminal offence, or falsifying this document is a criminal offence punishable by no less than 6 months in jail and or a fine of €5,000. So people were petrified. Jesus, I couldn't. Ryanair was screaming out looking for passengers. Do you want to go to Prague for €5? Hostels are €6 or €7 a night. Now the rest of the people who were in the hostels with me, they probably would have come with me if they had an IOMMNA thing in their phone. That's all they needed, and they were given €200 every week to do it. So if I was given €200 every week and they paid me every 3 weeks, so that was every 3 weeks, you're going to give me €600. And you want me to do what now? You want me to stay in the free hostels around Dublin that are full of crackheads and mad bastards that'll gouge my eyes out if I cross them in any way. And I don't walk like them and talk like them. They don't like my accent, so I'm in danger there. So you want me to stay in those hostels, but you're going to give me €600, and all I have to do is come back in 3 weeks. Grand. Okay, that's a good deal. And away off I go. Spain, fucking Poland, Germany, all over Europe. I remember crossing over the Charles Bridge on a Saturday in the middle of summer, and it would have been jam-packed if it wasn't for the pandemic, and I'm the only person there. Hostels had about 10% occupancy. They were still open. It's just that everybody was too afraid to go near them. So you could get them for cheapest chips. About €6, €10. I stayed in a really nice one in Barcelona for €10. I stayed there for 2 weeks. €10 a night, €70. €70 goes on rent. €130 goes on food. I had a few extra quid from wherever the fuck I had extra money from. I can't remember what. I would have had a few extra quid coming in. Possibly Granny's inheritance started filtering through. But the point is, I wouldn't have been able to do much if I didn't have that. if I didn't have that, whatchamacallit, the IOMMNA virtual meeting in my pocket. So that's what I'm doing even now. I spend 2 hours at least every day talking to people that we call each other the family. I am intimately connected with them and they are intimately connected with me. And because of that, I don't experience loneliness the same way other people do. And I can take amazing trips like this and I can tell you the story instead of you guys watching me like you might have watched when I was running around like a madman in my vlogging from Hanoi, ironically entitled Sober in Hanoi, and most of the videos were me off my head. That's 15 minutes. Let's go check out the hotel. By the way, who says you need a snazzy camera in order to be able to vlog? You only need your phone, lads. That's it, and I don't even need to use a mic. The sound quality on this yoke is excellent, right? Fuck it, here's the rain. Let's go. It's 25 to 6. There's a run on the bank. There's a run on the bank. The peso is in hyperinflation. Trump has broke the Fed system. I just stopped off for 2 little chicken breasts there in the whatchamacallit. There's a heap of different chains of chicken over here. In Asal, that's actually based out of Bocolin. But it's a franchise, so you'll find them all over Negros. Crispy King is the chicken place where I go to. Now, I'm on the way up to a cathedral. There's a rumour on the grapevine, and by grapevine I mean the NA Facebook page, that there's a meeting in this cathedral. And here, isn't it coincidental, the police station is just over there. Now, I have a bone to pick with a number of the guys in the fellowship down here. There was a Polish guy locked up in that police station about 2 or 3 trips ago. Maybe about 6 weeks ago. No, 2 months ago. And he's an alcoholic. And the police explained to me that they leave him out of his cell, they release him, and no sooner have they released him than he goes and drinks a bottle of vodka, and then goes off to try and find his wife, who has left him for the neighbour, and smashes up the place. So I was just feeding him, and then I was trying to get some sense out of him because he had no English. Anyway, I put a message on the group chat just to say, lads, if any of you are passing that police station, could you bring in a bag of donuts to your man in there, and maybe some of the other prisoners too. And I didn't get a response, and I tell you, on top of that, I didn't even get one of the likes or the emojis. Not even a recognition, like a smiley face with the tears, like happy days, mate. I'll if I'm passing by, I'll drop some donuts into him. Not even an acknowledgement. Anyway, I won't bring it up. Everybody's different, I guess. Arrived at a place called Eco Rock, right up in the mountains. That's Tuamgeti over there in the distance. And about 1 kilometre down the road, I crossed over a bridge and turned a corner, only to be faced with a dirt road, almost at like a 45-degree angle. That was impassable. I nearly burnt my clutch. And so I reversed back down the road in the darkness and left my car up on the curb. That's what we're renting. So I left my car up on the curb and came up here by foot, about an extra kilometer from that bridge that I was telling you about. And then just as I arrive, I meet this guy Patrick, who's busy eating his spaghetti, but he had done the exact same thing. So you can't drive your car up here, but once you get up here, it's kind of worth it, right? Just tents, like, fairly basic, but so it's 6:30 a.m. I'm on the way back. That was a really nice sleep I had in that tent last night. Apparently it's an English architect who built that little resort, and they do intend to build a couple of hotel rooms, but for now, why not? They just pitch a couple of tents, try out a few air mattresses, and Bob's your uncle. I could have hung around for the AA meeting at 10:30. Probably would have went for lunch with Brett and Scott after. But I have the itch. I wanted to hit the road so that I could experience driving over the mountains at sunrise. It's just after sunrise now. I thought I might close out my rant, or at least this little video, talking a little bit about denial, which is it's the biggest obstacle, the Great Wall of China, would you say, before you reach this whole new world, a life beyond your wildest dreams. What's the difference between a life in recovery and life in active addiction? Could you possibly say one of the biggest differences is that sense of denial that you live in? We have this saying on the coin, on a lot of the medallions that you get in recovery: to thine own self be true. To thine own self be true. And that sums up, really. If you are telling yourself that there's nothing really wrong with what you're doing, even though you know deep down it's not good, you know that you need to change it, right? But still there's this little voice in your head that says, yeah, but I'll probably change it tomorrow. I'll do something, I'll live my life differently next week. It's like the present version of yourself is negotiating with the future version of yourself as to whether you should do that thing you know that you shouldn't be doing. And it might be just drinking vodka for breakfast, or having a few beers and getting a bag of cocaine afterwards. Or it could be visiting a lady of the night, paying for sex. Maybe it's just like, I should really stop eating cheesecake after my dinner. In each instance, you are choosing pleasure over pain. But in each instance, the present version of yourself negotiates with the future version of yourself. And in the negotiation, future you will say, but Connor, what about your career? Connor, what about rent? What about your girlfriend? Have you thought about all of these things? Like, yeah, you might just use for now, but in the long run, if you keep on doing this, instant gratification, if you keep on doing it, what about me? And the present you will take out the proverbial baseball bat and smack the future you over the head. Shut the fuck up. Every time. And the baseball bat is denial.
because the baseball bat will say, I hear your arguments. I hear what you're saying, yeah? The long-term effects, not only to me, but including to other people, are abysmal. But I am present you, and I have a baseball bat. And I don't mind using the baseball bat because you don't seem to understand what the baseball bat is. It's not invisible. It is your ability to be dishonest to yourself. Your ability to say, oh, that's only a little bit of, it's only a little bit of cocaine. I'm only paying for a little bit of sex. It's only a little second slice of cheesecake. I think also that denial can play a role in our procrastination. Like when you're in a relationship that isn't serving you. I've been reading about emotionally immature people, how to disentangle from emotionally immature people, and it's an eye-opener. Like, if you delve into the literature on any given topic, but certainly in topics around relationships, the description of the narcissist or the emotionally immature person, which is just a lower level, a toxic person, a difficult person, for whatever reason, they lack core abilities like empathy, compassion, forgiveness, self-acceptance, or even an ability to be able to look at themselves and see that they are wrong, an inability to admit wrong. It's like you can entirely expect, if there's a 4-year-old, you have a 4-year-old son or daughter, and the 4-year-old daughter is saying, I want a toy! I want the toy, Daddy! And you say, no, you can't have the toy. But I want the toy! I want the toy, Dad! Oh, I see what's going on here. So you're a 4-year-old child, and if I say no, you're going to react the way you do because you're 4. You're supposed to be immature. But when a grown adult acts in certain ways, like for example when they gaslight you, or they engage in name calling, they try and convince you that you're only imagining things. You know, they try and convince you of a different reality. It's like a 4-year-old. It's like a 4-year-old child screaming about the toy they want in the toy shop. So it's not your job as an adult to try and convince another adult how to be mature. But it is your job, if you are belted across the head with a proverbial baseball bat, and that baseball bat stinks of denial, it is your job to seek the answers. You can find it in literature, and you can find it in the community of recovery, where people will tell you, you've got to delay your gratification. You got to delay your gratification. It has to be that the future you has to win these arguments. Right, that's the end of my spiel.